Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to What You Want, and thanks for logging on. Well, I've got a treat for you today, because I can tell you, it's been a treat for me. This is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar, reference 25820 ST, 39 millimeters in stainless steel. This watch is a loving tribute and an embodiment of Audemars Piguet's greatest historic traditions in the modern era. Two traditions, really. The 1972 to present Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo, which shares its case, its base movement, and its bracelet with this watch, as well as the 1981 to present Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar. So let's just talk about what that means. Now, in 1972, Audemars Piguet, they like to say they break the rules, and maybe it's a bit bluster, but it's also got a kernel of truth to it, because in 72, they launched the first steel sports watch fully integrated with its bracelet, with its case, priced at the level of a gold watch. It was scandalous at the time, and at the price of a very substantial car. It didn't find many takers initially. It was too iconoclastic. Designed by the legendary Gerald Genta, the watch was something of a slow starter, but boy did it pick up momentum. Eventually becoming a legend and a classic in its own right, it spawned legions of imitators, from houses as respectable as Patek Philippe, IWC, and Vacheron Constantin. In many ways, the idea of the craftsmanship that goes into a watch being the root of the watch's value was really the root of the modern luxury watch tradition, wherein we don't worry about things like precious metal and precision so much as the amount of artisanal skill that goes into creating the watch. After all, quartz is the ultimate in accuracy, and heck, a big lump of gold with a quartz movement inside it, hey, anyone can do that. So in a lot of ways, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak of 72 established the modern criteria for a luxury watch and the basis on which we value and evaluate them. In 1981, Audemars Piguet launched the first complication on the Royal Oak platform, and that was the Perpetual Calendar. The Perpetual Calendar that you see here continues in that tradition with a beautiful lacquered Grande Tapisserie dial, a feature of the original, but enhanced to include a perpetual calendar, a complex and comprehensive perpetual calendar, I may add, as well as a beautiful moon phase at 6 o'clock. Now I'm going to put it on the wrist, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the fit, the feel, and the look here. And that's important because while we're talking about the Jumbo, it's important to remember that the Perpetual Calendar shares the base movement, the basic case proportions, and the bracelet with the Jumbo. You ask, what does that mean? It doesn't read on the camera the way it reads on the wrist, but I can feel that there's much more delicacy to these links. They're lighter, they're more, I would say, gossamer than those on something like a 15400 or a 15300, one of the contemporary modern Royal Oaks. The Jumbo wears a lot lighter and more delicate than a modern Royal Oak. That's why it's considered to be a connoisseur's piece. It's also something of a rarity. Very hard to obtain. A Jumbo or a Perpetual Calendar using that essential movement, the Audemars Piguet 2120, and I'll get to that in just a moment. The sightings are few and far between. It's rare enough to see a Jumbo, but to see a Perpetual using that platform, that's a true unicorn, a white whale, call it what you will, it's a rarity. And this one's exceptional. On the wrist, it's light. It almost disappears. Now, the watch is less than 10 millimeters thick. That's with an automatic winding perpetual calendar moon phase movement. That's how delicate and discreet this thing is. It works as a formal watch, no doubt. You could see that on my wrist, which is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, this one hunkers right down. It's got great stance, it's got great presence, and it reads a heck of a lot larger than 39 millimeters, thanks to the integrated bracelet that visually extends it, but it doesn't wear like a big watch. On the wrist, it feels like it's barely there. Supple, smooth, doesn't pinch skin, doesn't grab hair, and you could see the look is absolutely timeless. This watch could have been built any time between 1981 and the present, and no one would, except an expert, would be able to date it. But the condition of this one reads as brand new, and that's really something special. Now, the key features here are those of the traditional Audemars Piguet Jumbo. Moving inboard from the tapered and integrated stainless steel bracelet, we can see that classic octagonal Royal Oak bezel with the inset white gold bezel bolts. Now they are slightly recessed. That's the original design of the Royal Oak. That slight recess is designed to preserve the white gold bolts, which thread straight through to the case and actually help to retain the bezel. There's just a slight expression of the gap between the case and the bezel, and that's by design. Express just a little bit of that bezel gasket. Now that was exaggerated later on with the offshore, but it had its roots in the original 72 Audemars Piguet Royal Oak offshore. But when you move inboard from the bezel and the case and the bracelet, that's where the Perpetual begins to express itself as a distinct model. And you can see that all of the elements of the Audemars Piguet 2802 Perpetual Calendar Moon Phase module are laid out with a gorgeous bilateral and vertical symmetry. White gold applied indices with loom, white gold hands, all diamond polished, outstanding presentation. What doesn't really present in this video, but you really must experience in the high-res photos on our website, Watch You Want, is the gloss of this blue lacquered tapisserie dial. Incredible detail. Also an incredible gleam to it. It's really beautiful because of the way it brings life to the dial. It's not a matte finish at all. There's a reflection and it transforms and it shifts and it comes to life. And you can sort of see it here now. As you move it through the light, this is a dynamic dial, far more so than the matte tapisseries that you see on some of the classical jumbo references. This one has a lot of personality. And the calendar, which features at 9 o'clock the day, at 12 o'clock the month and the leap year cycle, and at 3 o'clock the date, also features a sapphire disc at 6 o'clock, which features a PVD process that actually deposits the metallic element onto a rotating sapphire disc. The result is incredible gleam, brilliance. It just comes to life in direct light. Everything about this watch is an artisanal triumph, and that continues on the case back, where Audemars Piguet treats you to a rare and exquisite sight. This is the Audemars Piguet reference 2120-4/2802 ultra-thin modular perpetual calendar moon phase movement. I've talked about a lot of the crossover between the jumbo and the perpetual calendar, and that continues here because this is the ultra-thin Abache developed by Jaeger-LeCoultre for Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, and Patek Philippe in 1967. Now, AP finishes theirs with a distinctive valet de jeu treatment, and I want to talk about some of the elements that make this an exceptional caliber. First of all, in spite of being automatic winding with several complications, the whole assembly is only 4 millimeters thick. That's over 50% thinner than most conventional automatic chronograph movements, and if you want to take something that's just time and a date, like the Rolex 3135, this is over 2 millimeters, over 2.5 millimeters thinner than that. That's awfully impressive considering how much goes into this movement. 343 parts, 38 pivot jewels. This watch is also automatic winding with a fully hand-engraved winding rotor. Skeletonized, that's almost a métier d'art by itself. Now I want to focus on that skeletonized rotor for a second because it's really a treat. I can't do justice to it with the iPhone, but it almost looks like a spider web of metal, and that 21 karat gold winding mass at the end is actually supported by what's known as an annular rotating ring supported by 4 pivot rubies. That's right, the rotor itself is actually a circular winding device, and part of it has the gold mass, but it actually goes all the way around the movement, loops all the way around, and the winding mass is actually set in the same plane as most of the clockwork. It sort of cantilevers over and around the movement, so it's kind of like this, hooked over the side, to allow for ultra-thin construction. And to support it, there's actually a ring underneath it that's rolling on 4 ruby roller bearings, an incredible arrangement that allows this ultra-thin system to also be ultra-efficient. It's an incredible combination of thinness and efficiency that very few watchmakers can even approach. Despite the fact that this movement came out in 1967, Audemars Piguet has continuously improved it. And again, the proof is in the practice. You look at the finishing quality, the reputation that this movement has amassed over decades, the fact that they've improved the escapement to a free sprung, well, technically semi-free sprung. It's a screwed down regulator. It can't move due to accidental shock. They've made it basically their own. With linear Côte de Genève, they have a soleil pattern, radial rayon striation on all of the rhodium covered wheels and all of the brass wheels of the going train. even though you can only see them peeking out, feature circular graining. All of the screw sinks are polished, all of the jewel sinks are polished, all of the screw heads, in a unique practice, are completely exposed, no blued oxidation. What I like is that they haven't tried to hide behind the blued screw. A lot of times that's used to cover up marginal finishing of the screws. Here, all of the heads are polished, all of the slots are chamfered, all of the circumferential edges are beveled. This watch rewards viewing under a loupe, not just for this gorgeous engraved winding rotor, but because every individual element, like those screws, like those jewel sinks, represents the peak of artistry, the peak of finishing craft, skill, and tradition in the Vallée de Joux, where Audemars Piguet is based, and in which it is one of the chief practitioners of the highest standards of Swiss watchmaking and watchmaking finish. See this Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar reference 25820 in stainless steel on our website, Watch You Want.